Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's podcast episode, I talk with men's coach, athlete, and podcast host, Lachie Stuart. Lachie is the owner and the founder of the Man That Can project and is all about connecting, empowering, and influencing men to live an inspired life. In this week's episode, we dive into mateship, values, the ego, the mirror, using fuck you energy, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Now, guys, before we start this week's episode of the podcast, I want to talk to you about the Life by Design Mastermind. The Life by Design Mastermind is the mastermind for go-getters and high achievers who are looking to create a more successful, fulfilling, and balanced life by design. If you're serious about transforming your life, achieving your goals, and living a life on your terms, then the Life by Design is your golden ticket. Head over to the show notes and click on the link for more details about the program. Lachie Stuart, welcome to the podcast.
Lake, thanks for having me on, mate. I've been excited for this one.
Mate, so am I. It's been a while since we chat. I can't even remember the context of our last catch. It was a podcast or something.
It was, part of me feels like it's literally like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I feel like the last 5 years, because of COVID and things, have mashed a lot of things together. Yeah.
Do you ever get Lachlan?
When from I'm being naughty from your mum.
God bless.
From your mum. And when I'm in the naughty books.
Yeah, God bless. We'll stay with Lachie for today. Mate, looking forward to talking all things men's work, men's coaching and men. But before we get started, can you give the guys a 60 to 90 second spiel of who you are and what's got you to where you are today?
Perfect. So I am a men's performance coach. I'm also a husband, I think an exceptional mate, an adventurer, and someone who loves to challenge themselves physically and mentally. What got me to the point that I'm at now was my own experience, having my experience of rock bottom, where I felt like I had to go one of two ways. I was going to stay living a really poor quality of life that I was living, or I could, make some drastic changes. And fortunately, I went with the latter. I went with the drastic changes. And from that process of inspiring myself and investing in myself, I inspired others and have been investing in others ever since.
That was sharp. That was real punchy, actually. Have you practiced that before?
No, I haven't. I literally made that up on the spot.
I liked it.
What's clear and concise? And there we go.
I like it a lot. There was something that kind of stood out to me in your bio, which I don't think I've ever heard before. And I'm interested to make sense of where it stems from. And that was an exceptional mate. Why is that significant, and why did you put that in your bio?
I think for a long time a long period of my life, I was a terrible mate. I didn't value friendships. And I think anything that you don't value, you don't invest time into, and you aren't intentional with, and you don't have what you're looking for from it. So how that played out in my life in the earlier years was I was around a lot of people, but I never felt valued. I never felt heard. And I really didn't feel like I could depend on those people. So for me now, while I don't have as many friends around me, I have a lot of, associates, but the mates that I do have, I keep them in my favorites list on my phone. I make sure that I'm the best bloody mate to them of all time. And I'm proud of that.
What, in hindsight, you've done a lot of work. What do you think created that lack of significance in friendships, or not valuing them as high as you do now?
I felt like it was more I had a point to prove for myself. I grew up wanting to be successful, and what success looked like to me then, Blake, was through sport. And I thought that once I achieved the goal that I wanted to with sport, everything else in my life would take care of itself. I'd have a great marriage, or plenty of women that I wanted back then. I'd have awesome mates. I'd have money. I'd have fame. I'd have all the things that I thought I wanted. And because that was such an important thing for me, I didn't feel like I had the time, or it wasn't necessarily a priority to invest in those other areas. So it wasn't just, with my mates that I was pretty terrible. It was in a lot of other areas of my life. Like if I didn't feel it was going to get me to where I wanted to go, ultimately that big vision of being successful, I just used it to get what I wanted from it. It was more a taking, what can I get from your relationship, rather than where's the value? It's a reciprocal relationship. And I think in 2014, 2013, around that time, when I did feel really alone, and I moved down to Brisbane here, and I was by myself, it gave me a lot of time to get clear on who I wanted to be as a man and how I wanted to treat others based on how I wanted to be treated as well. And I was comfortable being by myself for a while to figure that out. And then when I figured that out, I had, I guess, some boundaries around the kind of people that I'd let into my life, and also some boundaries around how I would invest in those relationships.
What do you think, was there like inner dialogue for you in that 2013, 2014 of, because really what you spoke to before was programming and conditioning at its finest. Was there any internal dialogue of, oh, fuck that, like friendship, let's just keep striving for this quote unquote success? Was there that part of you that continued to stay alive with this other part of like, oh, maybe there's something else here around like real solid friendships? What was that process like for you?
That's a great question. And it's still something that I guess I'm working on today, because I do know that I have moments where I'm like, I'll start hanging out with someone, for example, who has outcomes or results or networks that I would definitely love to be part of, right? To help me go to another level. And there are times, because you do focus on that my program is like stuff that my mates will understand. They know what I'm trying to achieve and why I'm going there. But I still don't think, we were talking about it offline before, Blake, there's certain things that certain levels of success require, and in regards to what you need to sacrifice and how you may come off to other people. And I feel I'm very aware of what I'm not prepared to sacrifice around my reputation, how I treat other people, and even, looking at health, etc. So when we go back to this programming or thought processes, I think about it all the time. And I even challenge and question other people that I'm spending a lot of my time around, or the people that I'm investing a lot of my time in right now, the right people, right? Because we do outgrow people. A lot of us don't like doing that, but because I see it a lot, and you probably do as well, Blake, people hold on to their friendship groups from when they were in preschool or primary school or even high school, depending on what age you are. And sometimes that's not serving you, right? Sometimes you're holding yourself back from becoming who you need to become to get the life that you want. And it's not about being better than anyone or worse than anyone. It's about just being clear on the path that you want to walk and the environment, or understanding that environment that you need to be surrounded by to achieve that, right? So for me, when I think about it as well, like people talk about visions and who you need to become and what you want to have. I obviously have goals around materialistic things. We all do. It's, the finer things in life, of course. But when I think about when I'm on my deathbed, there's a great book, 5 Truths of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. And those common themes come through. And for me, it's like, okay, well, where I want to go is going to be values-based. Has to be. So for me, it's freedom. And freedom's broken down into financial, meaning the reason why I want to have financial freedom is I can have the experiences, treat my friends, treat my families, treat myself to experiences that they may not normally get. The second one under that freedom is the flexibility, hence why you and I have very similar careers, right? Like you want to be able to, I want to be a stay-at-home dad one day. If I want to pick up and travel up to Proserpine next weekend like I am, I'll do that. Like I want that life by design. And as long as, opportunities come across my desk, and I'm sure they do for you as well, I go, is that going to tick that box? The next one has to be, or for me, it's health. If it's going to not allow me to maintain my health, the reason why I don't want to work in a really highly strung, stressful, potentially high-paying corporate role, most of them, if you look at them, their health isn't where they want it to be, and that's mentally and physically. Okay, so that's extremely important to me. We then look at connection. And this is where we talk about you do outgrow people. That's completely fine. So I'm not attached to any one person, right? I do love a lot of people in my life. And sometimes if you break apart, it sucks and it's hard. But I have an idea of, at the moment, what I value and what I want. And from that connection standpoint, it's being around people that challenge, empower me, and help me feel valued and heard. And obviously reciprocally, in that order. So when I do get opportunities, when things come across my desk, it's like, okay, will it allow me to feel valued, or, connection? Let's just summarize that. Will it work with the health one? Will it work with the freedom one? And if it does, it's like, cool, there we go. Life's going well.
It's a really good, yeah. And I don't want to kind of underestimate the significance of what you just said there, because if you continue to use your values and your value hierarchy as your North Star, as a compass, it's very hard to make bad decisions. Where have you made bad decisions when it comes to,
I've got a lot.
Could be a loaded question, but when it comes to maybe in your more recent grounded conscious times that have been misaligned?
I think in business, like business is one that's at the forefront of my life. So if we look at where I started back in 2016, 2017, the business has evolved a lot and we've tried many different things. And sometimes it's been driven, in the beginning, it was driven out of money. I needed to make money because I was broke. Okay. So every decision, every conversation in the underlying thing there was money. And when you're so focused on that, I think especially in a service-based business, it can be very hard to maintain integrity. I'm not saying you can't, but for me, it was very transactional. I wasn't necessarily as focused on the outcome as I wish I was. And I got a lot of feedback from that, I guess, that whole experience. And then I guess the benefit was it gave me the opportunity to have my head above water again. So then I could start reassessing and going, okay, service-based business here. I'm helping people go from A to B. Right? I help myself now just go from A to B, but how can I do it where they maintain integrity to who they are and the life that they want to live? And you got to look at yourself. And I still am doing it right now. I was telling you, I spent 6 hours yesterday building a course and I deleted the bloody thing. And it was heartbreaking because I got to do it again after this. But it's understanding that when you can look at yourself in the mirror and be content with who you are. Okay. I think it's an important, accept who you are is a very important thing, but also look at yourself through the lens that, hey, I do have blind spots and I do need to get better. You put up a post yesterday, Blake, and I fucking loved it because it's been on the front of my mind as well, especially in the industry that we're in. There's people that don't treat it like a business. And when people are investing in you, in your services, you've got to treat it as such, right? And accountability is a big part. I can't remember the other part that you said there as well, or like systems and processes, right? It's still a business at the end of the day, meaning the more streamlined you make it, the more systemized you make it, the better it's going to be for you. And the customer's going to have a much more incredible experience. And there were times when I was like, I'm just a coach. I don't need to do that stuff. Like I'll flick them an email, I'll shoot them a text. It's fine. And I wasn't taking myself seriously, but more importantly, I wasn't taking what they wanted seriously. And so I could give you a million different examples about through business and various things. But for me, it's like accepting who I am, or one, having the awareness. Secondly, accepting who I am. But thirdly, you can always get better. There's blind spots. And even if you can't see it, you need to have the right people there to point them out. And sometimes we're very fortunate where our clients might be those people. And it's never nice to have that experience, but sometimes it's the experience that you need. And if you can appreciate that it is there to help you get better, you will continue to grow in leaps and bounds.
One person who's generally quite good at bringing to light our blind spots is our partner. God bless their cotton socks. How's your relationship changed over the last, how many years you guys been together?
Nearly 10 now.
Yeah. How's your relationship? How would you analyze the difference between the first 5 years and the last 5 years?
Mate, I've never been asked this question ever. I think in the beginning, I would have been a very, very tough person to be with. I lacked awareness. I didn't take responsibility. I couldn't contribute and I didn't like the fact that I couldn't contribute. So I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder. My wife was a higher income earner. She was more emotionally, I guess, intelligent than I was. So I would react a lot. She would just look at me like I was probably a kid having a tantrum. But she stayed with me that whole time. And I still feel like the luckiest bloke that she did do that. But as I became more emotionally aware, we go back to this piece. It's like I became aware that I was the problem 99% of the time. And the way that I was choosing to view things or how I was choosing to react to things was causing a lot of the issues. Now, her patience was phenomenal. I didn't have, and I still struggle with patience to this day. But when I started going, okay, well, this happened in our relationship and it wasn't a very fun time, but that's because of me. I started taking ownership and I started working on these things. it then highlighted another problem, that it's obviously important to work on these things, but it's also very important to communicate to your partner where you're at with these things. So when I went through, I experienced depression and I'd shut down and I'd respond in my own way and I need my own space, I'd never communicated that to her. And because I was reacting in that way, I was also starting to go, she doesn't care about me. Like I was creating this whole event and situation for myself. And, you know, as you said, like our partners definitely can give us a bit of a, you know, highlight those blind spots. She's like, well, what the fuck do you think's going on? If you're not communicating with me, I'm not a mind reader. I'm like, that's fair. And so I truly give her credit for so much of the man that I've become, because one, you know, I'm so grateful. I feel like we're, you know, they talk about that cliche thing of soulmates. It's like we're thick as thieves. We do everything together. We've created so much together. She's been patient as all buggery with me, but she still, even, you know, 3 days ago, calls me out on things that I talk about a lot, but I'm not perfect with doing them. You know, I still can back away, and when I'm getting frustrated or feeling like I'm having a little tantrum, I'll start being a bit moody or whatnot, and she'll call me out on those things. So first part, she never used to call me out on it, but she still stood by me. I wasn't aware of what I was doing, and I just thought, hey, maybe the grass is greener elsewhere. Where we are now, it's like we communicate so well. I'm open to receiving the communication that I need. And also I sometimes do the same for her, hopefully. But we talk about it and we have regular things in place where we do hash it out. We started a podcast together, Blake, so we could work on our stuff. And we're at the point now in our podcast where it's like, I don't have anything that I'm pissed off at you about right now, which is phenomenal because we make regular time to air our, you know, our pet peeves essentially.
One
I
thing
hope
you
I
mentioned,
answered that question. So I
can't remember what the question. Oh, the difference between the first 5 and the second.
Yeah,
I liked
I
your answer. One thing that you mentioned there that I feel would be quite common amongst men is when they're challenged, thinking that either the relationship's wrong and not being able to see necessarily some of the challenges in the relationship as a mirror and more just the frustration or they're the problem. And then seeking the easy option where the grass might be quote unquote greener, albeit the grass is greener where you water it. What have you noticed in terms of the way that you used to respond to feedback and your partner being a mirror for your stuff, and in more recent times, how you see feedback and the mirror that she is to you?
Oh, mate, you've got the greatest questioning of all time. I think in the beginning, it was tough because I had to accept things about myself, and coming from that background where I wanted to be successful, all you ever think about is who you need to become or what that life looks like. To then have to have that reflected back at you that, hey, you're emotionally insecure, you have jealousy, you're not as good as you think you are in this specific area. That is hard to swallow. And when you get faced with that, you've got two options, right? You either address it and go, okay, that's where I'm at. Do I want to change it? Here's what we do. Or alternatively, you grab yourself a beer, go down to the pub with your mates and just bury that, right? And that's tomorrow's problem, which then becomes the next week's problem and the next month's problem. And for a long time, I did that, and it just put me in a worse and worse position. And now when I get to see those, I guess, perspectives or points of myself mirrored back in my face, I love it because it means I am growing. It means I've now just gone to a whole new level if I choose to work through it. And I still see a psychologist every month. I've been doing for so long. And most times I go, I'm like, I don't need to go. I really don't need to go here. Like, life's bloody amazing. Then I get in there and I'm like, oh, shit. I needed to go. I really needed. It's like the same cycle. So I get to do that with my wife as well. And there's so many things, Blake, that I have to work on. Like, I don't ever want to come across as thinking I've got my shit sorted, because I don't. I'm just trying to do these 1%ers. And you know that when you learn something, to actually be able to implement it, and then you get feedback from the implementation around some other 1%ers that you need to do better, i.e. the example we used earlier with business. You can start a business, right? You can get X amount of clients. Doesn't mean you're killing it, because you still can improve your systems, your processes, your invoicing, your market. Like, there's so many things. And there's these 1%ers with all of those that you either need to delegate or you need to get better at yourself. And part of delegation from my experience, Blake, was letting go of ego. It's hard to let go of something you've created, like very hard. And like my business partner the other day is like, so how come you let me take some of the business, like what you've created? And I'm like, well, I realized that I'm slowing the growth because of my own ego. I wanted to be the guy because, speaking about what we spoke about earlier, I craved success, and that to me was recognition. I craved recognition. I thought if I gave that away, I wouldn't be as recognized. But what I then realized was I'm not able to achieve my mission of the impact that I want to have in a business that I want to create in a life that I want to create if I don't let go of that. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Upon reflection, where do you think and it's super common, just to kind of preface this for everyone listening, where do you think that real strong need for recognition stems from for you?
Acceptance from family, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, a very common one, especially, I feel like everyone that I grew up with was the same, was a working class family, and I loved the sport sort of background. So, and this is nothing against how our parents were. They did what they needed to do in that time and way of life. My dad was always at work. The only time we really bonded and connected was over footy. Anything else wouldn't come to running, wouldn't do this, wouldn't do that, which is, fine. I've since realized that he showed his love and affection through being able to provide the lifestyle that we got to live, right? Obviously, maybe I preferred time together, but that's just the way the world worked then. So I knew that if I could succeed, I knew that I thought I would get recognized if I succeeded in the chosen sport that I wanted, because that's where Dad and I connected. So the more successful I became in that, the more time we got together, the more recognition I got from Dad, which made me feel awesome. But it wasn't built off anything apart from me continuing to strive for something that eventually was going to have an end date.
How, based on that, and you mentioned both success and achievement earlier in this chat, how has your relationship with the desire for achieving and success changed from what was quite a clear childhood wound there to the relationship that you have to both of those now?
I talk to my psychologist around this a lot because I'm still extremely competitive and I still want to succeed. And I struggle as well with the fact that I feel if I learn to become, and might not be the right choice of words, but complacent in regards to success and goals that I have, I feel I'm going to become lazy. And for me, and I think, they talk about what motivates you, pain or pleasure. And I think that is a pain that motivates me not to become lazy. So where that relationship would have changed would be success used to be everything. Success to me now is having, still having those big goals that I want to achieve and will give me the things that I once craved, but having other things going on around that. Like I mentioned to you, over the last 8 years or 9 years, I've had since 2014, I knew that one day when I became a dad, I wanted to have the flexibility and freedom to do that. So nothing's changed. But I'm still a very competitive athlete. I'm very competitive in business. Like I've built I believe, a really great company. I'm like I said, an exceptional mate. And all of these are games. Like that's how I view them because it helps me show up as the best version of myself like that. And my psych's like, oh, you're more focused on doing than being. And I'm like, well, I am being because I practice, being present. I don't have my phone on when I'm around these. I'm enjoying the moments, but I also know that if I don't gamify it, I'm not going to give any of those areas of my life the time and the intention that they deserve. And that's just for me. And I don't know whether there's any right or wrong. And I think this could go around in circles all the time. It's for me, if that helps me feel like I'm being better in those areas and I'm showing up better in those areas, then that works for me. And I'm okay with that. Like, yeah, I've literally, I'd say 80% of my sessions is around that success, chasing success and a sense of achievement. And, you can definitely decompartmentalize what achievement is through checklists and all of that sort of stuff. And look, I love doing that, but I'm also very focused on the big stuff, right? The small box ticks I don't care for in regards to business. That's more so like making sure I do regular date nights. When I get home, I kiss my wife. In the morning, I bring her a coffee. Like the things that matter for the tick boxes are those for me. But in regards to business, it's like I'm always chasing big. In regards to sport, I'm always chasing big. If that makes sense.
Loved it. How do you, one of the things I observed with Michael Jordan and Goggins, and you're welcome to put yourself in the same category as them if you want.
Oh, you're throwing me there.
is a lot of dark energy in their motivation. And you kind of touched on that a little bit there. And I remember Tom Bilyeu talking about it, the owner of Quest, for those that don't know him. And he spoke about a lot of his initial motivation being from dark energy of like, fuck you to those that think I'm not going to make it, and you know, said I was going to be a failure, etc. And now he feels like it's 80% healthy in terms of good energy towards like, you know, having impact and stuff like that. And there's still a little bit of fuck you every time he really needs to find a deeper level. Yeah. When you think about your own motivation, where on that scale do you feel like your motivation stems from?
Let's say probably a 60-40. I've thought about that, maybe not in that context, but when I get comfortable, I do become complacent. And when I become complacent, I don't feel as happy. That's been my experience. So now, and look, Goggins and all those people, I love what they're about. I don't love the extremity of that sort of stuff. I think part of your post, actually, to tie it back in with that post, which I loved yesterday, was like people are living up in this world that doesn't have a foot on earth. And I think all the tools that I've learned, and I guess understanding the polarities between pain and pleasure, masculine and feminine, and all of that sort of stuff. And even seeing with my psychologist, it's like, if I feel like I'm in a good place and I'm not being an asshole, I'm adding value to, you know, I'm living a very fulfilled life, I'm being a great husband, I'm being a great mate, then whatever's getting me to do that is good enough for me. And because I think there was a very period of time where I was trying to get to the bottom of how much, I guess, negative stuff is driving me and motivating me, which back then was a lot. I still think there's definitely a high percentage now. And I'm aware of that, but I also feel like it adds so much value to my life. I don't know, and maybe I'm fearful of, if I didn't use that, would I become, as I was saying earlier, lazy and not achieve what it is that I want to achieve? And I also feel I put a lot of pressure and expectation on myself based on, and you may be able to relate to this, Blake, based on the position you're in. If you do take a step back, you're not having the impact that you know you are currently having and continue to scale. And that for me is like being connected to something bigger than myself. It's like, yeah, my life's amazing. I could slow down, definitely. But when you get a message from someone's partner or from them around things that you may have content you've put out or coaching thing they've been a part of that's impacted their life, you then think about the ripple effect, right? I think about my relationship with my father, my relationship with my mates back in the day. If we can give people the tools, the awareness, and the opportunity to skip that or repair that faster, that excites me. Because when we look at the statistics around why men are taking their life by suicide and stuff, and some things that stick out as finances being one, relationship breakdown, and obviously poor health and a lot of stuff that goes around the mental health space, is that's all preventable. Like, I truly believe it's preventable. We just need to go one person at a time. It's very easy. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but it's very easy today because we've got a mobile phone where we have the potential to reach millions of people, to go, I want to reach millions of people. And what often happens is our focus goes from what's in front of you to what's out there. And it's about coming back to, you got to earn the right to do that. And that starts one person at a time. And so I feel the pressure that I put on myself to do that can be a bit dark as well, because there's times where I'm on the phone late at night or whatever. I maybe cross a boundary that I shouldn't have, where I say to my wife, I'm not going to work after 6, and I do because someone that I care about needs a call or whatever. But I do that because I genuinely don't want people to have to go what I went through, and the millions of other stories that are out there that could be preventable with the right tools and awareness.
Resonate with so much of that, including your motivational drivers. What are the negative drivers for you? Whether that's people that doubted you, whether that's family stuff. What are some of those dark, quote unquote, negative drivers that still drive your energy and your passion and your motivation today?
Yeah. So I've got, I guess, 3 main ones. Obviously, the people that doubt me. Even when I rode 30 marathons in 30 days last year, and everyone was like, even like someone that I really, really, really respected was like, you'll get to day 5, you're done. And that was for me like, fuck you, done.
Eat
the second,
shit, motherfuckers.
Yeah, eat shit, motherfucker. I'm going to crush it. And the next one was an Uber driver. So I used to Uber drive back in 2014 or 15. And the lady at the time in that Uber, she just laughed at me when I told her what I was going to achieve. And she's like, well, why are you driving Uber then? Little did she know I was doing it to build the network and practice building rapport. And that, I know there's a lot of people, I had Facebook pages made about me when I left town, and all these sorts of things is a big fuck you to those people, because I don't have tertiary education. I didn't succeed on my original goal. I'm literally I've done a lot of courses and whatnot, and invested a lot in myself over the years, but essentially I've done what I've done off my own back, and I continue to do that. Even business, it's all built from the ground up, and I'm more successful in so many different areas than a lot of people that I know, if you want to go into metrics. So I use that burning desire, and it's also for me the scarce, I guess, that fear of being lazy. I don't want to be lazy. I've got that attached and linked to so many terrible things that it's just like I'm proving to men every single, I work with CFOs of billion-dollar companies, CEOs, all this sort of stuff who've let an area slip. I want to prove to people that you can achieve great financial wealth. You can have the most fucking insane relationships with your mates and with your loved ones. You can live an epic lifestyle, right? And you can make a lot of money all at once without having to compromise. You just got to delegate, right? Practice what you preach. Sorry. Prioritize your time and be intentional. Get good at saying no. Like there's a few things there that you can work on to do that. So yeah, you may be able to fast track it if I went all in on business and said, see you later to my wife and everything else that's important to me. But I don't want to be fat and lonely and unhappy in who I am when I get there. So I'm bringing everyone along. So that's another motivator that I think about all the time. And I guess, once again, while I was sitting at home going like this to your post yesterday, there's a lot of people who portray that they're killing it. Okay. And I used to do that. So I'm not like, I just think it's important to talk about. The reason why I want to get over to the States is I want to learn from people who actually have a big company, like in what we do, not just look like they have a big company or a big business. Because once again, when I then try to start asking questions about people's business when they say they do, it's like, I don't actually have that. I'm like, all right, next, because I need to learn to get better. I'm not where I want to be. I need to learn from the people who have what I want. So to, I guess, the coaches, that the industry that we're in, I want to prove that it is possible. Like you can, much to your point, have systems, processes, and a really functional business that does deliver transformational experiences, etc. And there are people who are doing it, just not enough yet.
What have you seen? So you're talking about kind of having it all. What have you seen as the biggest challenge with the men that you work with when it comes to having it all? And I think to speak to that, I'm sure you can kind of relate. A lot of men become somewhat one-dimensional. It's either a lot of money or a good rig, or they're good in the relationship, but they struggle beyond that. What have you seen as the biggest issue around that?
Well, depending on where you become one-dimensional, it's the bank. Let's look at it like a bank account, right? Your bank account takes a administration fee every month, regardless of whether you're putting money into it or not. So from those areas, you can put daily deposits, that's nice. You're going to have a healthy account. You can do weekly deposits, depending on size. It could also be healthy, but if you look at compounding, or you could do monthly or whatever, right? You choose your deposit rate. And when you become so far removed, right? For example, you're putting 100% of your cash flow back into the business. You're not investing in your health. You're not investing in your relationships. You're not investing in your lifestyle. It becomes very, very hard to do that, even if you have $1 billion, because you're so tied into that way of living. But it takes, and we were talking about it before, thought processes and perceptions of the world and stuff. Your internal representation of how the world works is so far removed from the life that you thought you wanted, one where you could be healthy. But I was dealing with a client today, right, who was going to cancel, and he is in charge of a huge company, right? And there's always the things around, I can't prioritize my health, but then he'll have a meltdown because he's not healthy enough or not energy enough. No relationships going on in his life. Biggest pain point, not having someone to come home to at the end of the day that, he can love, essentially. And the lifestyle, there's no lifestyle. Why would you trade that off? So my biggest belief is, if you get $1, make sure you start splitting up now and continue to reassess where that dollar is going based on where your life's currently at. Because at the end of the day, and once again, this comes down to what you want from your life. But I was saying to you before, Blake, like, I'm not driven by $1 million. I know how much money I want to be able to travel, to be able to maintain my health, to be able to be an active father, to do all the things that I want. So I know what that number looks like. Once I get there, I don't need to go above that. Yeah, you can continue from a business standpoint, but I'm not going to sacrifice those things to get there, if that makes sense. So I'm always investing daily. And, an exercise people could do, they could, let's just say you make 5 buckets. You could do lifestyle, you could do health, wealth, relationship, and career, or maybe if you want to take career out and use it in health, but go through where you spent your time the last week, right? How many hours did you spend at work? Might be 40, might be 50, whatever. How many hours did you spend on your health? So that could be not only just exercising or eating well, it could be learning about how you can improve fitness or whatever. We then look at lifestyle. What did you do for you? Not just sit on the couch watching Netflix, but like hobbies, like having fun. And then your relationships. How much time did you invest into your relationship? Write that down. You're going to get, transferred into percentages and work out how much time you're spending in each bucket. Does that reflect how you feel your life's going in those areas? You're either going to get a yes or you're going to get a no, right? Then you've got 2 options. If you're getting a no, for example, you're spending, someone who says, I spend 25% of my time on relationship, on all, it's an even split. You then need to learn to start getting, or 2, spend more time on one thing, or learn to become more efficient and intentional with it. And that's where I sort of shift my focus on. It's not always about more. We know this, right? It's the book, The One Thing. It's like, focus on one thing and do it really well. Or what's the one thing that I need to do that, should I do it, will have the biggest ROI or improvement of where I want to go. Even if you've only got 4 hours a week on your health, what's going to be or deliver the biggest ROI moving you towards where you want to go? Or relationship, same thing. If once again, you might be run, walking, or sprinting in business. And when you're sprinting in your business, you don't, as you were saying, Blake, you're doing right now, it can be hard to give your full self in other areas, which is completely okay for a short, sustained period of time. Okay. But you need to go, okay, well, if I've only got X amount of time to deposit in these areas, what is going to be the best use of my time? What is it going to be? And just do that. Everything else can bugger off until you have more time. And that's why I believe, how you can maximize your time is you just start going, okay, what's going to be the best bang for my buck with the time? Everything else is noise, which it is.
Mate, couldn't agree with you more. Very punchy, actually, that spiel. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Mate, we'll probably have to get you back on at some stage. But for now, where is the best spot for people to find you and the work that you do?
Just over at our website. So themanthatcanproject.com. We've got everything, the podcast, and I'll have to get you on the podcast. I know I said I've cleared a lot. Wicked. So in the next couple of months, we will get you on. And then all our work and social media, blogs, all that sort of stuff is all there. And
go to the website. I was about to say on your social media, but they can find it there.
Find it all there, yeah.
Beautiful, brother.
Which is good.
Great to have you on the podcast.
Mate, thanks for having me on. That was honestly some of the most incredible questions I've ever been asked. I loved it.
Appreciate it. We'll get you back on for another chin wag for sure.
Thanks, Blake.